Ming Huixuan knew from the first time she met Mao Yan that he liked her. His gaze seemed to collide with something, then he glanced around slightly flustered. Knowing that Mao Yan would inevitably glance at her, she also paid great attention to her demeanor. When rising to toast, she did so gracefully and smoothly, and when sitting down, she first placed her hips on the chair before leaning her entire upper body back. A woman's elegance is truly innate. She wasn't like this before, always standing and sitting clumsily with a clunk. She didn't know why she was behaving like this. Did she also have a liking for Mao Yan? Maybe, but she wouldn't admit it. This was her accompanying her boyfriend He Lang and a group of his hometown classmates to welcome Mao Yan. Among her boyfriend's classmates, Mao Yan was the most successful one, graduating from a prestigious university, furthering his studies in the United States, and working for a large corporation in Shenzhen a few years ago, earning a salary of 500,000 yuan per year. Now he had been transferred back to his hometown as the deputy general manager of a branch, truly promising. In the over 5 years that Ming Huixua had been with He Lang, she had heard Mao Yan's name mentioned countless times. He had practically become a capital for her boyfriend to boast, but privately, he would also tell stories about Mao Yan's embarrassing moments to elevate himself. He used to copy my homework in high school. When studying, he was just my little lackey, who knew he would score so high on the college entrance exam. At that time, Ming Huixua and He Lang had a very good relationship, and for someone He Lang valued, she naturally respected as well. This respect originally didn't have any particular meaning, but upon discovering his interest in her, she suddenly became aware of her gender. It was as if someone approved by her boyfriend had developed a liking for her, which was the greatest confirmation of her own charm. After that gathering, He Lang often took Ming Huixua and Mao Yan out for meals together. Mao Yan mentioned that he had a brief marriage while studying for his master's degree in the United States. The other party was also a Chinese girl, a Harvard graduate, but they parted ways due to differing views. Ming Huixua asked, "Do those who graduate from world-renowned universities like them feel a sense of superiority?" "Most of them do. Once, when I took my ex-wife to attend an alumni event in Beijing, my ex-wife, who usually spoke very softly, suddenly spoke very loudly, in a voice that everyone present could hear, when someone asked her which university she attended in the United States. She said Harvard. As he said this, he imitated her, with a booming voice and sudden chest vibrations, catching Ming Huixua off guard and making her laugh. Mao Yan also laughed heartily, and the two of them laughed together. Alcohol was in their heads, and their hearts were floating upward. The atmosphere felt like a cone, with their hearts like two balloons meeting at the sharp tip, nudging and floating inside. He Lang calmly said, "Of course, graduating from a prestigious university is something to be proud of." Mao Yan added, "It should be. After all, I only attended a top 20 university in the US for my master's." There was a subtle change in the atmosphere. Ming Huixua no longer spoke openly or laughed openly with Mao Yan. In the subsequent meals, they were both restrained, but the more restrained they were, the more their open radars could pick up on each other's ambiguous signals. The breeze in their eyes, deliberate grooming, words unintentionally directed at each other, the collision of fervent masculinity and femininity, all kept secret. Ming Huixua just quietly enjoyed it, unwilling to delve deeper. After all, she had a very good relationship with He Lang and they were headed towards marriage. Mao Yan had a lot of uncertainty, not knowing where he would be transferred tomorrow. His face, his body language, all expressed a sense of insecurity. She wasn't so fickle. She took pride in the feelings coming from the outside world only because she knew she would have a stable married life, and that was all. After He Lang's mother was suddenly diagnosed with a serious illness, idiopathic pulmonary hypertension, requiring a heart-lung transplant, the situation was dire. When they asked the doctor how much money they needed to prepare, the doctor said around 500,000 yuan. Only a limited amount could be reimbursed through community medical services, so they needed at least 200,000 yuan in cash. As a couple with not very high incomes, and with He Lang having just bought a new house, they could hardly come up with the money. After borrowing from relatives and friends, they only managed to scrape together a few tens of thousands of yuan, a drop in the bucket. He Lang, feeling defeated, said, "Should I ask Mao Yan?" His hesitation stemmed from his uncertainty about the outcome. If he borrowed and didn't get it, he would have no friends left. Plus, he had always been seeking a balance in front of Mao Yang. Borrowing money would lower his status. Ming Huixue advised him, 20,000 yuan shouldn't be difficult for him. Ask him, but don't ask over the phone. Do it face to face. He should be too embarrassed to refuse in person. So that evening, the two of them arranged to have dinner with Mao Yang. The meal was lavish for a reason, and Mao Yang ate calmly, seemingly aware that the solution to a puzzle could only be revealed when one was half drunk. He Lang got himself drunk first. He briefly mentioned his predicament, but his words were inarticulate, overdoing it. Mao Yang said, "Stop drinking," but he insisted on drinking. If he didn't drink, he couldn't muster the courage to ask, couldn't bear the shame of rejection, and couldn't express his gratitude for Mao Yang's promise to help. He finally succeeded in making himself sick from drinking before broaching the subject of borrowing money. Mao Yang said, "I've just returned recently, and my house in Shenzhen hasn't been sold yet, and I don't have much cash on hand. Although I might not be able to come up with the amount you mentioned, I can contribute some. Wait for me to go home and check my finances. I'll call you tomorrow." Mao Yang offered to drop them off. Ming Huixue explained that He Lang had rented a small house near the hospital for the convenience of taking care of his mother, so He Lang would go to the rental house, and she would go home. Mao Yang suggested he call a designated driver to drop off He Lang first and then take Ming Huixue home. After helping He Lang into the rental house, Mao Yang and Ming Huixue returned to the car. Mao Yang sat in the back seat with Ming Huixue. It was an inappropriate move, but it was time for some things to be made clear. "Thank you," Ming Huixue said nervously. "I never lend money to others. If I do, I don't expect it back. Consider it a gift." "I understand," she said, "but we will definitely repay this money. We'll repay you in 3 years with interest according to the bank's fixed deposit rates. I'm doing this for your sake." It began. He hadn't even said how much he could lend before confessing. Did he have to judge her performance tonight too? Ming Huixue didn't want it to go this way. It would belittle her and lower him. "We will definitely repay it. The interest will be paid according to the bank's fixed deposit rates," she continued. "Don't you understand? I'm doing this for your sake." "Do you have a good relationship with him?" he asked. "Yes. I'm really jealous of him." Ming Huixue sighed. She had a lot to say. She wanted to say that she and He Lang had been together for 5 or 6 years, and they knew each other inside out. She wanted to say that she actually knew nothing about Mao Yang, and he was elusive. She wanted to say that she knew his conditions were better, but she didn't dare to try, fearing risks and losses. She clenched her teeth and didn't say it. She thought he should know what she wanted to say. She hesitated for a moment and asked him, "You keep saying you're doing this for my sake. Do you know how much faith I have?" "All of it," Mao Yang said. "He wants all of it." "Then, thank you." Ming Huixue glanced at him, a distant and regretful glance. Mao Yang smiled bitterly and understood. "There are always things in this world that I can't get," he said. The next day, Mao Yang transferred 200,000 yuans. He Lang was relieved of his urgent situation and immediately called to express his profound gratitude. Then he said to Ming Huixue, "See, I knew it. Mao Yang truly lives up to being the most impressive among my high school classmates. Impressive people are generous." He Lang's mother's donor procurement went relatively smoothly, and the surgery was scheduled soon after. When Ming Huixue had time, she also came to the hospital to take care of her future mother-in-law, and the whole family praised her. Ming Huixue found these verbal praises very gratifying. She had been taught since childhood to be a virtuous wife and mother, to prioritize her husband. Dedication made her feel her fervent existence, and her relationship with He Lang took another step closer. On the day He Lang's mother was discharged from the hospital, the couple found that because of the long hospital stay and the amount of belongings, they needed to make 2 trips to bring everything back. Ming Huixue suggested, "Why don't you go first? I'll stay behind and tidy up. I'll take a taxi and bring the rest of the stuff later." While sitting in the taxi, Ming Huixue heard a phone ringing from the bag. It was He Lang's phone. She answered it, and it was He Lang, using his mother's phone, sounding very anxious. "I thought I lost my phone, but it turns out it's with you." If he had only said the first half of the sentence, Ming Huixue could have understood his anxiety. But since the call was answered, and the phone was with her, why was he still so anxious? Ming Huixue became suspicious and checked his phone. WeChat, nothing unusual. QQ, nothing unusual. Text messages, nothing unusual. Suddenly, she saw an unfamiliar app, one she had never seen before, in English. She opened it and found it was a social networking app with private chats, all about sex, extremely explicit. Through his conversation with the girl, Ming Huixue discovered that they had met in person twice in private. Both times, He Lang went out around 2 or 3 in the morning and returned around 5 in the morning. What happened was self-evident. Ming Huangshu's heart felt as if it had been sealed with cement, unable to beat. Her ears buzzed. This was the relationship she had staunchly defended. This was the person she had trusted. After arriving at their destination, Ming Huixue carried the belongings of He Lang's family upstairs, threw them on the bed, said nothing, and left. When He Lang called, she blocked him. She also blocked him on WeChat. Fortunately, the new house he bought hadn't been handed over yet. Otherwise, if they were living together, it would have been more complicated with decorating expenses and moving things. But she couldn't control her despair. Those few days felt like the sky was falling, and she spent every night staring at the ceiling until dawn. When the streetlights went out in the early hours of the morning, she could still remember how they looked when they came on a few hours earlier. The scenes of their first kiss and the first time he undressed her were still vivid in her mind. How could a person do such things? Mao Yan suddenly received a message from Ming Huixue, saying that they had broken up because he was seeing someone else. "How do you know?" he asked. At that moment, Ming Huixue had taken screenshots of those chat records. She found them in her album and sent them to him. "This is too much," Mao Yan said. "Stop sending them. I can't bear to look at them." Then Mao Yan made a voice call. Ming Huixue couldn't help but cry. "You should ask him for money." "Ask for a loan?" "But when I was having dinner with them, I told them that I sold the house in Shenzhen and bought a house here. The down payment here is only 1/3 of what I had in Shenzhen. Now they all know I have money. Why would I ask He Lang for money?" "You should ask him. You should ask him." "Stop crying. Where are you? I'll come pick you up." 20 minutes later, Mao Yang's car stopped downstairs. By the time Ming Huixue got in the car, she had stopped crying. She asked him where he bought the house, and he said it was a finished house, fully furnished. He had arranged all the soft furnishings within a week. "Do you want to see?" he said, pulling up a 3D image on his phone. "What's it like in real life?" "This is real life." "Really? I want to see it." It was a well-known property in the city. She had only seen it in videos before. Mao Yan took her to his house. It was indeed luxurious, with one elevator serving to households, and the entrance door was double-layered. Ming Huixue felt like she had entered a fairyland. Mao Yan asked her if she wanted coffee or juice, but she said she didn't want anything. As she unbuttoned her clothes, she could see her entire fortune reflected on the bright, reflective floor. Regardless of the outcome, she just wanted it to be like this. "You should ask him for money," she said again. "Didn't you say you lent him money because of me?" Mao Yang felt uncomfortable. Ming Huixue looked into his eyes. "What? Are you going back on your word? I know you're not someone who just follows the crowd, and I don't want to take advantage of someone else's misfortune." He stopped her from unbuttoning her clothes. Besides, where would he get the money to pay me back now? Sell the house? Did I force him to sell the house? Not to mention, even if he does sell it, property prices have been falling for the past 2 years. Even if he sells it and buys a new one in a few years, it'll be cheaper. Ming Hui's wife felt extremely angry. She needed a place to calm down, so she said she needed to go to the bathroom. Mao Yan pointed to a door, and she walked over, thinking why he refused to ask He Lang for money. Was it because the bank lowered interest rates this year, and if he puts the money in a fixed deposit, he won't get the interest we promised last year? Or was it that lending money wasn't about saving face for him in the first place? He just wanted to take advantage of the situation? As she touched up her makeup in front of the mirror, she noticed a few bottles of women's skincare products. She stood in the bathroom and asked, "Mao Yang, do you have a girlfriend now?" He walked over, standing outside the door, and said yes, he met her a month ago. Oh, the despair in her heart became numb. "Do you want coffee or juice?" he asked again. "Give me a glass of wine." She walked out. Mao Yang poured her half a glass of whiskey while he was still getting ice from the freezer. She had already finished it in one gulp. "I'm leaving. Goodbye," she said. "No need to see me off." Mao Yan, wearing slippers, chased after her to the door but couldn't catch up. He shouted a few times loudly but didn't chase after her again. Ming Huizue ran and cried as she went looking at this youth. Someone who had been unfaithful after intimacy made her feel like her body had been insulted. Giving herself to someone who didn't want her made her feel like her body had been insulted. Was she made of paper or clay? Why was it so easy to feel humiliated? After this flood of tears, she felt invincible, impervious to all harm. 6 months later, Ming Huizue found herself a new boyfriend. He didn't have the ostentation of He Lang or the hypocritical gentlemanly demeanor of Mao Yang. He was a down-to-earth person, someone who did more than he said. The best compliment he ever gave her was, "You're so beautiful. You're like a pirated version of Zhu King. With looks like yours, you must have had a lot of guys chasing after you since childhood, right?" "Quite a few. Senior brothers, junior brothers, even teachers, first loves, ex-boyfriends, and the iron buddies that her ex-boyfriend was most proud of. Girls who are even slightly attractive probably have a lot of admirers. But what does that represent? It's just fleeting hormones. Being loved is not an honor, and not being loved is not a disgrace." She was certain of herself. She wouldn't change into someone else just because of someone's love or betrayal. And she had learned to embrace all the unknowns with acceptance. In front of her was the solid reality of everyday life, relaxed, calm, with a hint of martial spirit. Happiness flowed in with every meal.